So it took 22 minutes to get a virtual network gateway deployed into EastUS 2 and 32 minutes to get that deployed into Japan. So now that those deployments are complete, we can take a look at them. So I'm going to go back up to the resource group level. Now, before I get into the gateways themselves, let's look at the networks. So remember, we added the gateway subnet to those two networks, new test 1 and new test 3 in my case. If we go into connected devices, we can see that the network gateway successfully connected to the gateway subnet in this network. Go back up to the resource level, and I'm going to go into that gateway. What we're interested in is connections, okay? Now, there are no current connections. Now, we could set up a point-to-site VPN or a site-to-site VPN, but in this case, we're going to set up a VNet to VNet connection. So under connections, I'm going to say add. We do have to give it a name. I'm going to call this Talking to Japan. It is a VNet to VNet configuration as opposed to site or express route. So that is one of the valid VNet gateway configurations here. Now we know that the first gateway is the one that we're in, which is the VNet gateway. The other gateway is the Japan gateway, and we can choose this from the list here. So now we're signaling that we want to connect these two gateways. We do have to create a shared key that both gateways are going to have to be set up with in order to have this communication. Now, if we had a physical device, we could grab the key from that, but this is a VNet to VNet. So we do have to give it the password effectively. Now, it's not hidden in any way, so I'm going to put just my shared key. I'm going to leave all the rest of the defaults. We know what subscription we're in, what resource group we're in. We know where this gateway's already been created. So I'm going to say OK. We'll give that a moment to get created. So it's been about 10 minutes since I created this connection, and we can see that it's in a connecting state. If I go into it, we can click into it. We can see it's a connection, and it is connecting the new test 1 and new test 3 networks based on the two gateways. Remember, this is in EastUS 2 and this one's in Japan. And so we can go into activity log, and we can actually see that there's activities going on. 13 minutes ago I started this connection, and now we're into from some other stuff. So we can actually look at the deployment as it's going. Oh, and now it says succeeded. So now we have, as we were clicking around, two virtual networks that are connected to each other over a network gateway. Now, so remember, we've got peering that can be local or global with one pricing structure, or we've got this network gateway which can also be local or global. Now, the advantage of a network gateway over the other option in terms of peering is that network gateways are actually scalable. So if you have a lot of traffic being sent, you can actually get up to a higher SKU. Like if we go into the configuration, we can see that we chose, gateway 1, but we can go into gateway 2 and gateway 3 if we wished. We could also set up an active to active configuration, which would allow even redundancy in case, so that this thing would even be higher availability. Okay. So gateways have sort of an enterprise grade to them, not saying that peering is unreliable in any way either. So we can also set up a configuration where you have your corporate network using a site-to-site VPN to get into Azure using a gateway, and then being able to then further connect onto other networks from there through a peering relationship. Now, we did set up a gateway on both ends, but that's not even required in a peering relationship. Remember when we were looking at the peering, I go into this one and into peering. We could have enabled, we basically could have enabled a network. We can enable new test 2 to use the VPN device on New Test 1 or the gateway device for New Test 1. And so this concept of remote gateways is a way of having one VPN device and then having remote gateways that are using that device to communicate onto the corporate network. So lots of sort of settings when you want to set up peering between different networks.